If you've already told us where you're coming in from, tell us what you're drinking this evening. I will give a shout out to the Secular Synagogue team who created an amazing Megillah cocktail, mocktail list. And I will guiltily admit that I am not drinking any of those fancy cocktails because I didn't have all the right stuff, but they all look delicious. And I will be making some this weekend for sure. Whiskey sours, Baileys, a Manhattan, oh, it's one of my faves. Gin, bourbon. My people are here. Margaritas. Ah, I see. Okay, well, congratulations on getting the COVID shot, and I'm sorry that means you can't join us in drinking, but it's likely worth it. I would make that deal if it was offered to me.
For sure. And some people are choosing not to drink, which is totally fine.
Totally fine.
We were very explicit about that. It's up to you. And
yeah,
honestly, in many places, pot is legal now, so you could you could go that route instead.
You absolutely could. My Canadians, fellow Canadians.
Oh, lots of states now too.
Totally. People are writing their mocktails, their juice combinations in the chat as well. All that is perfectly good. A couple Saint Germain cocktails. That's popular.
Yeah.
Miriam is noting in Michigan it's also legal. Fantastic. Good to know when I'm able to come visit you again, Miriam. You'll have supplies on hand for my arrival.
Well, I assume we shouldn't start on time because that would be like Purim starting time for Jewish organizations, right?
You can start whenever you're ready to start.
We'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes. We're at 91 people signed in so far, which is great. And we're also now streaming live on a Vimeo link and I think on the Jewish Live Facebook page, hopefully. I'm not double checking that, but cross my fingers. And we'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. So have your drinks, enjoy. If you have a costume, feel free to rock it where you are. Denise and I each chose a simple costume. I am doing what I call Zoom formal. So I've got full tuxedo and shorts.
And I am, we couldn't decide in my house what to call this, either a Denisaur or a Denisaurus. I can't even say it either way. Denisaurus. We'll go with Denisaurus. But anyway, also very Zoom cozy for this particular pandemic Purim because may as well.
I have somebody celebrating a pantsless Purim. Thank goodness this is a webinar.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, we try to maintain a little bit of control. Okay, so we'll get started here. I'm going to leave the chat open if you have stuff to share with us. We may or may not get to it. We'll see, right? It is definitely adults only, but that doesn't mean we've lost all taste.
We'll keep our pants on, such as the shorts and onesie pants are staying on.
I can promise you my pants will stay on. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Adam Chalom. I have a habit of not introducing myself in these programs, so I'm going to make sure I do that. I have 2 jobs of my formal Jewish life. I am the rabbi of Kol Hadash Humanistic Congregation in suburban Chicago, and I'm also the dean for North America of the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism, which is hosting this Purim program. We celebrate Jewish identity through a cultural approach and a human-focused philosophy of life, and that's about as much heavy ideas as I think I'll be able to handle through this program, because I started at dinner. So what I want to do now is turn it over to Denise to introduce herself, and then we'll get started with the program.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Oh, now I'm having tech problems. My goodness. I was trying to drop the link for my community, which is an online community, always online, not just in the pandemic. It's called Secular Synagogue. It's at secularsynagogue.com. I'll get to it eventually and be able to drop the link in the chat. And I created that community in 2018 to be a place where the values and learning and celebrations and awesomeness of secular cultural Judaism could come alive in the online space. handy in a pandemic, as many of you know. Our lives have sort of shifted online in a larger way, but we were already there. I also am a doula, so if anybody is pregnant, then I feel like I'll work that in because I have some fun pregnancy Purim things that might come out in our discussion a little bit later.
Are there ethical rules about operating as a doula while drunk?
There are. If I'm on call, I don't drink, but I have no clients who are in their due date window right now, so I'm good to be drinking. And I will also just add that I teach at a university, and today was my last day of school. So in addition to usual Purim party energy, I have last day of school energy. So happy Purim. Glad to be here with all of you. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Adam for doing this fun program with me.
Great. So we thought we would start with a short little video that gives you a basic introduction to Purim, just so we're all sort of on the same page, or the same Megillah, the same scroll, and have a similar background to know what's going on. And this is a nice short video. It's by an organization called Bim Bam that does nice introductory videos for Jewish topics. Okay, so a good introduction to the holiday. Didn't talk a lot about the violence and murder and bloodshed at the end of it. Didn't talk as much about like the, sexual audition that Esther has to go through at the beginning of it. It's a sanitized version of it, but at least we got a starting point for the story. So what Denise and I have decided to do is to try to put together ways to approach the story that are a little more fun and creative, but that also means getting us outside of our comfort zone. So one of the reasons why this only works as drunk history is that Denise challenged me to a rap battle, which, if anybody knows me, that is not my natural mode of conversation. But
rabbinic rap battle, it's necessary for Purim.
We are going to do our best, and I have a confident prediction that I will at least tie, but we'll see how it turns out.
People, we're going to have you vote, and I'm not going to lie, I'm invested in the results of this.
Yes, we do have a poll we're going to launch as soon as we're both done. So, and then we'll talk about what each of us had to say in that conversation. So you got a picture of Purim as a combination of Mardi Gras / Carnival / RuPaul's Drag Race. And people are asking what my drink is. It is a whiskey sour done, amateur without the blender or the cherry. And then I've got a whiskey shot chaser to follow as we go along, if needed. So we also planned the rap battle at the beginning in case we get a little too carried away with the drunk history part of it. And then we wouldn't be as competent at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Denise to lay us her rap focused on one aspect of the Purim story.
Okay. I'm going to I feel like it's necessary to be in full dino gear for this. This is called Purim Party Anti-Patriarchy Poem. Okay. By the way, congrats to all who booed from the comfort of their own home when the name was said. I'm enjoying the chat. Keep it going. Here we go. Had the Megillah get seen as vanilla? It's possibly the text, most vexed, filled with the dirtiest sex. Dirty because of the lack of consent. A harem, not a free room without rent. Do we ask, did the women choose to be there? To be clear, these women are used and abused. The beauty pageant, as we sometimes explain, a claim to innocence the text doesn't name. It's clear what's here, sexual slavery. While it's notable that we celebrate Vashti's bravery, she's exiled, left to die for trying to find some measure of control over her body. In the middle of this body, with a W, scene. This text, considered godly, capital G, is not usually seen for what it is, patriarchy on full display. The king has his pick. The text doesn't say that he chose Esther for her brains or sense of adventure. He likes her looks, and then he likes what comes after. He chooses her, and her choices are none. Remind me why we think this holiday is fun? We celebrate Esther, The heroines here, the women save the people, here. Let's notice they do this in spite of their circumstance. A dance they must dance to survive. No opportunity to thrive without using their sexuality. The intertextuality here flies off the page. Biblical women like Tamar and Ruth use their bodies, their brains, the occasional ruse to make their way in a man's world. It would seem that when we deem this holiday for kids, what we're really saying is, don't pay attention, ignore the reality, the brutality that women endured and still do. We can't get rid of the sexism. It's not hidden here like the name of God or the people's fear. It's in front of us. So let's not hide from it, deride women further, pretend sexism's over. There's more work to do. Let's celebrate Vashti, Esther, and all heroines too, who do what they do in spite of the odds, in spite of mansplaining, in spite of male gods, positioned to us like they know what we need. Until things change, we still live in a system of lots, where you're born and to whom determines a lot about how much control you might have over your body. Still a lottery, still a game to some, just the way we make Purim a carnival, when really it's carnal, violent, and a deeply troubling story. This is just about the sex. It also gets gory. So what's the takeaway here? Yes, Vashti resisted. Esther was met with great odds, but nevertheless, she persisted, like women always have and still do, from suffragettes to Me Too. So lift up your glass, share a toast with me. Let's celebrate with Long Island Vashtis to women and those who are non-binary who continue to smash the patriarchy. L'chaim.
L'chaim. I will give you bonus points for working intertextuality into this. We did promise when we said it was adults only that we would include literary theory, and so you did manage to do that. That's excellent. We'll see other examples. Later on, the word semiotics will appear, so you will find that. I also applaud you. I, as well, used the word ruse in mine, so you'll find that in just a minute. Okay, so here goes my rap, and then we will open up for the voting. Here we go. Once upon a time, try once upon a never. If we're going to get it right, then we got to be clever. There's a million ways this tale of Shushan days can astonish and amaze, but never took place. Take a look first at Mordechai, y'all. Book of Esther says he saw Judah fall. If Ahasuerus was really Xerxes, that's 100 years later. No matter how you work these dates, the names and places do not match. The faces, archaeological traces give no historical basis. If Mordechai was only 110 with the medicine available way back then, could he confront Haman and then again become one of the king's most favorite men? There's a million ways this tale of Shushan days can astonish and amaze, but never took place. Esther's turn under the microscope, her rise to fame, nope, and nope. The Persian royal house had very strict rules. They were noble families, not lovesick fools. Picking new queens by who's got back, rounding up virgins for a trial in the sack. Only with noble families could a match be made, so there is no way Esther could make the grade. Vashti is a queen who takes some flack, but thinking this is real is just plain whack. There's a million ways this tale of Shushan days can astonish and amaze, but never took place. Does it make sense that King AHV is unable to stop his own decree, or that thousands are killed and next day hundreds more, and no one tried fighting back to even the score? Would the king give the Jews his A-OK to kill more in Shushan on the second day? And were thousands more so scared of the Hebrews that they then pretended to become Jews, an elaborate ruse to extinguish the fuse? There's a million ways this tale of Shushan days can astonish and amaze, but never took place. Esther's not the only book like this in the Bible. For historical doubt, there are plenty of rivals. The global flood, the talking snake, the burning bush, or the tablets God makes. We can still have fun. We can boo Haman, drink until the sun, then have another one. It doesn't have to be factual history with such a killing spree. Better for you and me that fictionally Purim was, is, and will be. There's a million ways this tale of Shushan days can astonish and amaze, but never took place.
I mean, you had a mic drop, so there's definitely points for literal mic dropping in this. It wouldn't have been as effective, I feel, if I threw this onto the table. But that was amazing. Good for you.
All right, so I've launched the poll here. Your options are Rabbi Denise, Rabbi Adam. It was a tie or close. no one, that was terrible, or winning and losing are arbitrary concepts whose semiotic resonance varies depending on textual and contextual usage. Therefore, assigning one winner and one loser is entirely arbitrary and meaningless in a cold, voiceless universe. So you can decide which one best reflects your understanding of the experience. And as I promised, we did work in semiotics, just in case we didn't get intertextuality in earlier. All right.
I think everyone is very excited by your rhythm, and there were a couple of very hilarious comments about what your mic actually was, possibly KitchenAid mixer, possibly hair dryer. Very hilarious.
Actually, a podcaster. It's a podcaster style mic called a snowball mic, whatever. So it is actually a mic. Okay, so you're voting for the results. Let's see where we are right now. Okay, it looks like we've got 89% of people voting. That's a pretty good turnout. So I'm going to I'm going to end the vote here and end the polling. It should show the results. Maybe share results. Here we go. Okay, so you can see the results.
What? I'm just kidding.
Well, I edged her out on the solo votes, but I'm tied with winning and losing are arbitrary concepts whose semiotic resonance depends on textual and contextual usage. Therefore, assigning one winner or loser is entirely arbitrary, meaningless, and cold, voiceless universe. So I tied with the meaningless gobbledygook of academic speak. So
I would like to know who was the one vote for no one. That was terrible.
I made the poll anonymous. I cannot track down results to one person. The silent or the anonymous ballot is a sacred tradition in some parts of the world.
Indeed.
Okay. So what we're going to do now, yes, I tied with nihilism as one person.
That's your greatest dream.
My ambition in life. Nietzsche, take that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is our next thought was to play a short video by a group called the Maccabees, which did a Purim parody song, so to speak, an adaptation of a song called Raise Your Glass. Some of you might have seen it before. But one of the things I saw as I rewatched the video is how many things I disagree with this video about. So maybe when we come back, we'll look at that. But any last thoughts, Denise, about either my rap or thoughts about yours? I thought yours was excellent. I thought it was bringing it right into the present moment and really speaking an important message. Anything you wanted to add?
Yours was amazing. So again, points for the rhythm, but your message also really important about how we have wonderful stories in our tradition. That doesn't necessarily make them true. And I think your nod to semiotics really ties that together beautifully. So thank you for dropping your knowledge. Really, really stellar job.
Great. All right. People are asking for lyrics of these at some point, so we will find a way to get them out there in the world. Maybe on our Facebook pages even, or through our the Institute's Facebook page. We can put them both up there. There's a lot of ways to get there. Okay. Someone says God is not happy. Well, fortunately, in this story, you don't find a God. But what we will see is in the version that the Maccabees put out, and they're a modern Orthodox a cappella group, they find a way to put God in. And so we'll see how they do that as we share our next video. So how many things are wrong with that video? I mean, the music is great. The beat is, it's well done video wise. I see a lot of people commenting on some problems. Who gets to clean up the mess? Where are all the women here? The only girl you see is under 3. Maybe by design, some of the costumes are problematic. What are some things you noticed, Denise?
The thesis of that video is that God is hidden, is right in front of you. And that's a very traditional take on why the scroll of Esther doesn't name the word God. That, of course, it's all about God. This isn't what I'm saying, you understand. I'm representing what the traditional folks say.
Channeling.
But that, of course, it's really all about God. God is just hidden, and it's the job of the Jewish person to seek out God in the text, just the way God is hidden in our world, and it's the job of the Jewish person to seek out God's influence, and of course, it's right in front of you. So, I mean, I'll just say this is the way I learned the Purim story growing up. And it's one of those funny examples where, we often get accused in secular humanistic cultural Judaism about twisting things around to make them secular, but this is a secular text that they twist around to make it religious. So it's a very good teaching tool, even though I agree it's a problematic video. But, we'll do a L'chaim to Pink, whose tune they took. It's a good song. There's nothing you can do.
It is a good song, and raise your glass. I will say I'm using like little kitty glasses that we got for our kids. But when you're a parent during COVID times, this is legitimate use of a kid's glass if necessary. There are plenty of other things. Also, I saw a piece online recently where this, again, a modern Orthodox men's a cappella group made a program about all the things women can do as demonstrated by the Purim story. But evidently one of them isn't sing because they didn't have any women singing on the video because there's a concern about what's called kol isha, the voice of a woman, which is seen to be seductive to men. And it can be, but who cares? Like it's the men's problem, not the woman's problem. So it got some pushback in real time, which is good. But this is one of our dilemmas sometimes dealing with this material is we have to adapt it and modify it. But in this case, the scroll of Esther, in fact, didn't make it into some canons, as we'll see, precisely because it's so secular and so focused on people acting and trying, as somebody said, trying to shoehorn God into it really takes a lot of effort. There is one moment where Mordechai says to Esther, if you don't help us, maybe our help will come from somewhere else, but really you're the one that needs to act. Now, the question about bowing down, and is that a question of religious stubbornness or sort of personal pride? I mean, you can find pieces that talk about Jewish sort of religious solidarity, whatever. But in the end, I mean, to my mind, the story is a case of sort of Jewish diaspora wish fulfillment. And we'll see some examples of that a little bit later. All right. So what I want to do now is launch a second poll. The second poll is going to be, let's stop sharing the results here. Okay, so now I'm going to shift to our second poll, which is a Purim history trivia. Some of these might have been covered in other material we've talked about. Some of them will be brand new. And so I've launched this poll. It's only 5 questions long, so it shouldn't take too long to answer, but people can go through and make their answers as Denise and I are talking a little bit. Take your best guess. Some of the answers may seem obviously wrong, but that's okay. Jokes are fine too on Purim. Other thoughts about that video. I think this Maccabees group has become really popular, although I have to confess, I looked up when their first big video came out, which was Candlelight, which was their adaptation of Dynamite. It came out in 2010. And I read that and I said, oh, am I that old? And the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Absolutely. Okay. So we've got some votes coming in. We're at about 20% results so far. That's great. Keep them coming. So Denise, I was interested in your rap choice to do it more spoken word than rap rhythm. Was that a conscious aesthetic choice, or you just decided not to push the boundaries of what you were comfortable doing?
I wondered about what was appropriate and what I could pull off. So yes.
Well, I left the backwards hat upstairs. I did not. I decided not to put that on. Yes, definitely. Even though one could claim the Beastie Boys as an authentically Jewish rap source, but that's not my culture. So I was willing to let it go.
I will respond. A couple people are writing in the chat about it was not an option on the poll to talk about the hamantashen as really it's supposed to be vulva, not vagina, but we'll get there. Yes, has to do with fertility. Someone did write in the chat that they are pregnant, so I'm doing my doula bit right now. There are resonances about this holiday as a fertility festival in its earliest roots, so yay for that. And a very common food from the region, and also for this holiday has to do with pomegranate, and a lot of people who are pregnant eat pomegranate seeds as a symbol of fertility and also having a healthy pregnancy and possibly a large number of descendants if that's what you choose. And so so there are fun resonances for sure with the fertility and birth world for this holiday.
For sure. And I'll take the blame. I put the poll up. I didn't think to include that resonance to it, but okay, great.
Actually, if you go to my Facebook page, I posted an article about Hamantash and his vulvas that was published in Hey Alma. So you're welcome to look there.
Yep, definitely. Well, I mean, that's what makes these holidays kind of fun, is that you can always sort of uncover new layers to them, whether it's the historical questions that we talked about or the feminist questions. You know, when we read the story, we make Vashti a hero, but historically that wasn't the case at all. The rabbis in their commentary made her a total villain, totally oppressive to Jewish women. In fact, they imagined that when the king said, "Come to me to show off your beauty," he wanted her to show up naked, but that was just punishment for the fact that she had made all these Jewish women work in her palace naked. So, I mean, I'm wondering about the rabbis imagining all these women doing all these things naked. You know, maybe they didn't have porn, but they had their imaginations.
Absolutely.
But I always wonder if, you know, our version of Vashti is our version of Vashti. But the rabbi's version of Vashti is their sort of projection of the negative Jezebel kind of characteristics on her. And no one is, you know, one or the other. No woman, no person is what everybody projects them to be. And, you know, just like the kids' version of Esther is not false. It's just not complete with what we know of the story. And, you know, like when the women are called to the palace, as people are finishing up their voting, as the women are called to the palace, they go first into the virgin house, and then they visit the king for a night, and then they go back to a second house. And I always imagine that second house had the word "used" on the door, or, you know, broken in, or some. I mean, what do you think happened in their one night with the king? It wasn't like the talent part of the contest, you know. And that's the reality of the story. But the beauty contest version is what we get in Sunday school, and you know, we have to find an age-appropriate place to bring in the real story. Okay.
Absolutely.
So right about
before you go to the poll, some people were having problems tech-wise. They said the submit button was grayed out. I don't know how to help with that problem. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 80% of people have managed to vote, so
okay.
I don't know.
Apologies if your votes haven't been counted. This isn't voter fraud. We are not trying to rig anything here. I promise this is as legit as we know how to do.
There is nothing on the line on this poll, I'm telling you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is end the polling. At least you've had a chance to see the questions, and we can talk about the results. Okay, and so let me share the results here so everyone can see them. So first of all, Haman Tashin are really based on something Haman's ears after the Israeli Oznei Haman, something Haman's hat, Lakova Shalish, Shalosh Pinot, my hat is 3 corners, or Haman's pockets, which is close because if you know Yiddish or German, the word Tash or Tashin means pockets, but the real answer is actually a poppy seed pastry. That in the Middle Ages, particularly in German territories, they would make a poppy seed pastry around this time of year. And again, German helps to figure this out. The word for pocket, as I mentioned, is tash, or plural tashin. The word for poppy seed is mon. So a montash was the original poppy seed pocket, and then it becomes adapted into a hamontash as sort of a pun on the story. But if you get nothing else out of this program, I want to try to eliminate one of the things that drives me the craziest about Purim. The single is hamantash. The plural is hamantashin.
Wait, that's
so. It is not hamantashin. It was not hamantashin. It is hamantashin.
Horribly violent. The thing that bothers Adam the most, everyone, is the plural problem. Just so we're all clear on what the most egregious violation here is.
Those people with English teachers for mothers know that grammar supersedes other challenges. It is singular hamantash, plural hamantashin, not hamantashes, not hamantashins. Please.
You've been called a neo-tashist. That's my favorite comment. We should just shut this down now. That comment is the best comment we're going to get of the night.
What did they say? I didn't catch it.
You're a neo-tashist.
I am absolutely a neo-tashist. Okay, next question, number 2. The first reference outside the Bible to Purim comes from 13% thinks the Dead Sea Scrolls, 51% thinks the Talmud, 11% voted for Teen Vogue, always a fan of Teen Vogue, and 25% actually have the right answer, which is the second book of Maccabees, which refers to Yom Mordechai, the day of Mordechai, as being on the exact date that it actually is in the rabbinic calendar and in the book of Esther. So that's a late source, that's talking about the first century before the Common Era that we first get a reference to Purim, which is several hundred years after the event supposedly took place. Again, one more detail I could have worked into my rap if I wanted to make it too long, would have been the second book of Maccabees, but I had trouble working out a rhyme, so I skipped it. But yes, the answer is it's actually in the second book of Maccabees. The Dead Sea Scrolls, in fact, doesn't include the book of Esther at all, as far as we found, which again might be a reason why. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, number 3, Mordecai's name may be closely related to his father's accountant, Morty. No. The Hebrew for life, Chai, because Mordechai has Chai in there. An ancient Hebrew drinking game also got low results. The Babylonian king Marduk, that's probably the most likely. And then we'll talk about Esther's name too before we get into the background there. So Esther's name may come from the Hebrew for hide or secret, seter. Well, some thought. The Babylonian for her Hebrew name Hadassah, and her Hebrew name is actually Hadassah, as it says in the book of Esther. Her great aunt Esther, who didn't have her own kids, so she was named, well, okay, that's the joke answer. And the 60% answer is the Babylonian fertility goddess Ishtar. Ishtar Esther, Marduk Mordechai, makes a lot of sense.
See, pregnant people, fertility.
Exactly. Or, Hamantasha's vulva, fertility, fine. But I will say that some people think that this is some kind of Babylonian mythology adapted into Jewish sources, but Marduk and Ishtar don't have an uncle-niece relationship, and it doesn't really map out directly. What makes more sense to me, at least, is that these were their general name, their Babylonian names, just like, many people have an English name and a Hebrew name that they might have received at a baby naming event or something else. So it could be that they had a Hebrew name like Hadassah and an English name and a sort of Babylonian public street name of Esther. And we don't know what Mordecai's Hebrew name, separate from Marduk, was. But that makes more sense to me than thinking this is some kind of mythology that's been translated, because it doesn't match the mythology we know of Marduk and Ishtar. Now, maybe we'll find something and we'll have to change everything, but that's always the case with archaeology. Okay. And the last one, which is probably also why the book doesn't show up in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The book of Esther was almost let out of the Bible because Esther marries a non-Jew who probably didn't convert. I mean, after all, it'd be kind of odd for her to say, I'm not Jewish at all, but wouldn't be a bad idea if you, got a little snip and went to the mikveh and, just try it out. It should be fun. Should be fun. Unlikely that he converted. The fact that Mordechai actually pimps his niece out. I mean, some people sort of point out that this was a mandatory thing for all the young women or the virgins to show up. So it's not like it was Mordecai's fault for this. Is this too much sex and violence for the Bible? Please. Have you read the Bible? If you read the Bible, this is not too much sex and violence for the Bible. And the last question is because God is never mentioned. That's most likely why it almost didn't make it in, but in the end it did because of the rabbinic commentary around it. Denise, any other thoughts on the poll results?
No, that was fantastic. Thanks everyone for participating.
Yep, great. Okay, so we thought it'd be fun also to explore some of the aspects of the story that we haven't had a chance to dive into as much. Specifically, Denise was going to talk a little bit about some of the transgressive aspects of Purim. And so I'll hand it over to her.
Okay, so although we've sort of covered how this holiday gets religiousized and used, by the Maccabees and others to forward an agenda that probably most of us here tonight don't want to be part of, the beauty of this holiday and how it's evolved is that it really became, as many of you know, the kind of Jewish version of Carnival, which itself has really transgressive elements. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of them. First of all, just having a holiday where you're allowed to let loose and have fun makes sense, particularly for those who were living in a more traditional environment where you have to live your life by a very strict set of rules and laws and customs. And so having the opportunity to sort of let go and let loose is actually a very smart tool of control that keeps people, they give them a chance to release so that you can keep them contained the rest of the time. But a lot of Jews have really, seized upon that opportunity to keep the transgression going. So here are a few ways that happens. First of all, the Purim spiel, where often authority figures get made fun of, which is why Adam and I are welcoming of you making fun of us tonight only. No, just kidding. You can always make fun of us, and I'm sure you do. And so there is this way that authority gets questioned on this holiday. And of course, once that gets going, it's hard to stop it. And so that's a lovely transgressive element for those of us who are questioners of authority in our Judaism and in our lives. Another aspect has to do with queer, non-binary, and trans identities, that a lot of people have used the holiday of Purim to express their true identity because they were able to dress in a style that they wanted to. Often this is a time when within communal celebrations, people do blur the boundaries between gender roles and gender norms. And so hooray for our queer, trans, and non-binary folks for having a holiday that's especially freeing for them, even as it's freeing for all of us. And lastly, the thing that is dear to my heart as somebody who is intermarried is, as Adam mentioned, it's clear that this is a story of someone who was only able to become a hero because she was in an intermarriage. That's the focal point of the story. That's the kind of the crux of it all. That if she hadn't been Jewish, she wouldn't have presumably cared enough to save the Jews, which is bleak, but that's sort of what this story is implying. And also that the only reason she was able to be in this position is because she was able to be married to the king who was not Jewish. When we talked about the way the story gets kosherized, there are sometimes very hilarious ways that people talk about how Esther, in fact, did keep kosher the whole time in the palace. She only ate lentils. There's all this stuff out there, which is super fun to read about. But the reality is this is a story that is celebratory of intermarriage, if you read it in its plainest sense. And it's one of the stories we have biblically, not the only one, of a powerful intermarried person who is able to do a lot for her people. So not just that there's an intermarriage, but that there's an intermarriage that leads to the benefit of the Jewish community, just as we believe intermarriage and intercultural, interreligious partnerships continue to benefit the Jewish community. So I like that transgressive element of the story very much. I did clear with Adam that I'm going to drop links to both my congregation and my book on intermarriage when I came to this part, so those are coming now. Just a small plug. It's important that I do that. But the rest of the stuff we're going to do is plug free.
So there is a very important news bulletin in the chat. Someone says, I'm sure an Orthodox rabbi would have a very different opinion. Shocking, shocking. But I am curious for your thoughts, though, on what happens in some communities, which is problematic, which is sort of the transvestite as comedy routine, so you have a man dressed up as Esther or as Vashti for the haha, isn't that funny, seeing a man in a woman's clothing. And, so the gender bending part of it, we might be more open to in a modern setting, but the way it was done in the past is more cringe inducing than inspiring.
Oh yeah, 100%. Now, the challenge is, this comes up around Halloween as well, that, how do we know whether somebody is expressing their identity or is doing it in a making fun way? You might know based on what they're doing, what they're saying. So I wouldn't want to sort of judge somebody who was dressing up in a way that appeared to be gender bending. It may not be, but absolutely there's been a lot of sort of making fun or making light of cross-dressing. So for the record, we are opposed to that, but celebratory of the ways that this is a transgressive holiday for queer, trans, and non-binary folks as well.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And obviously the intermarriage source is really important. Someone is asking for your book link in the chat too. So I think she can hook you up with that. Yeah, she'll get there. It's called The A to Z of Intermarriage. It's really good. And there's even a program that we did in August that was a sort of book talk discussion about the book that you can find on the Institute's YouTube channel. If you either go to the Institute's page, IISHJ.org, and then click on the YouTube link, it'll take you to there, or you can find it by searching for Denise online, and you'll find the on YouTube, and you'll find it there. It was actually a fun conversation, and I was dressed less formally than this.
And I was dressed more formally than a dinosaur onesie, for the record. It's not my normal rabbinic outfit.
Well, I'm interested that you have a dinosaur onesie in the first place.
Sure.
Well, I will say, though, also that the idea of Purim as the opportunity to be creative, break boundaries, and so on is really important. And actually, again, really relevant to our approach in secular humanistic Judaism, where authority is authority because it has, people buying into it and because you have something to offer. But the reality, someone's asking about my costume. I'll just, for those who joined a little bit late, I'm formal at the top. I'm shorts and actually slippers at the bottom. It is what I call Zoom formal. So don't worry.
And I'm a Denisaurus.
Yes. So what I was trying to get into, if I can find my way in a drunk fog back, is that with the Purim, the whole idea of the Purim spiel was to make fun of authority, to question authority, to challenge the sort of self-importance that rabbis would have about themselves. And there's a reason why rabbis actually tried to ban the Purim spiel over the centuries, because they thought it was just way too counter of the point. Just like they thought Purim had to be kosherized by putting God into the story, they thought the Purim spiel was too undermining of their authority as rabbis and serious, very serious people. But if we can't laugh at ourselves, like what's the point here? So we celebrate the fact that people challenging authority, making fun of authority is part and parcel of the event. And if you can't take the criticism, get out of the rabbit. I mean, at a certain point, we have to accept that people are going to have their own opinions and challenge us and question us. And if we can't handle it with good humor, then who are we working with? I mean, I sometimes joke that my job would be easier if it weren't for all the people I have to deal with. But on the other hand, it's wonderful for all the people I get to deal with.
I'm pro people, for the record.
I'm also pro people on balance. Not all the time, but on balance.
Not all the people, also.
Not all the people, definitely. But I'm sure that Sherwin Wine's thoughts on Purim, this would not be his style. Absolutely. I don't think I ever saw him drunk. I think he had a glass of wine once. That's the most I ever saw. But after all, I grew up in his congregation, so it's a different dynamic. Okay, so any last thoughts on the gender bending transgressive stuff? Someone asked about Sherwin Williams. Excellent. Okay, so what I'd like to share is some thoughts on another question that's related to the topic, which is the whole question of the secular nature of the book, or what is the definition, this line between secular and religious. As we said, there's a secular book that appears in the Bible. It's very odd to see it that way. The religious interpretation was that it's obvious, it's everywhere. That's what the Maccabees are trying to say. But the more they say it, the more I think, it's like that Shakespeare line, she complains too much. The woman doth, the queen doth to complain too much, from Hamlet. That the more they say it, the more I think they're trying to push it in there. Because it is a secular book. It's about people acting in response to other people. Haman has a human hatred of all the Jews. It's irrational. And the Jews respond with human intervention and working the back channels and figuring out how to convince the king to change his mind. And then the Jews themselves aren't able to miraculously call on angels to fix. They have to fight back, and they do fight back, sometimes maybe over the top. I mean, you can analyze the human behavior all the way through, but it's human behavior. And that's what makes the story so interesting for us. It's a secular plot. It's not just a secular book by reference. The whole point is about human action, human motivations, human courage, human intervention. And as I mentioned, it's a kind of diaspora wish fulfillment, because what happens in the story? First of all, there's a threat to us. They want to destroy us all. Secondly, we have someone very highly placed who's able to get the ear of the king so that we get the privilege to act. Third, we fight back and we kick their asses all over Shushan and Persia and the 127 lands that the king owns. And the pièce de résistance is they are so afraid of us that they pretend to be Jewish. That is the pinnacle of diaspora wish fulfillment, that they should be so afraid of us that they have to pretend to be, because the normal experience is the opposite. We have to pretend to be like them to hide out and to escape and to survive. And so we hope that we get to kill them and kick their asses all over the place, and they have to act like us. And that's the goal. But of course, did it happen? Unlikely. But this is one of the reasons why we connect with the book so strongly, because of its secular resonance, because of its focus on human action and the plane of human existence and human flaws and foibles too, and human overreaction. The violent reaction of killing all of Haman's sons and killing these thousands of people became inspiration for later generations when Baruch Goldstein in the 1990s took a machine gun into the Tomb of the Patriarchs and killed over 100 Palestinians. Because he was thinking, it's Purim, I have to kill Amalek, whoever Amalek or Amalek is in my generation. And so the downside of Purim, the risk of Purim, is also part of the story and part of grappling with that secular side of the human soul, which can be evil as well as good. So enough off my soapbox. Denise, any thoughts on this secular religion question?
I have nothing to add. You covered all the things.
I'm too verbose. Okay, what I do want to do now is we have a short sort of comedic clip from an Israeli show called Hayehudim Ba'im, The Jews Are Coming, that's imagining the dialogue between Mordechai and Esther that leads to her showing up to the palace in the first place. So we're going to play that short clip from the show, the Israeli show Hayehudim Ba'im. So there you go, another take on the story, but a more feminist take that's questioning the whole idea of shipping Esther off to the king's house for the sake of saving the people, but on behalf of what? Or in the role of what? Great. Yes, and the last line is definitely the best. Only the high school girls will be.
I think people earlier in the Maccabees video were wondering why there was like a 3-year-old dressed up like Esther. This is the point. And I just want to say here that we are, sex positive and sex work positive. The video to me is not so much about that, but is about pointing out that this is not a story about heroines who are doing heroic things under the same circumstances as the male heroes we might read about in the Bible, that this is doing what you can with your very limited resources in very bad circumstances. And so, that's what the rap was alluding to earlier. It's about what you do when you have choiceless choices. And that has often been the situation for people of marginalized genders, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's so much in the chat, I can't even dive into it. I mean, if I were sober, I couldn't make my way through it, but it's certainly not going to work now. But I really want to thank everybody for coming. I thought you offered a lot through your comments, your answers to the polls, and so on. That was great. I want to thank Rabbi Denise for offering her insight and humor to everything. Remember, the story of Purim is something that's supposed to be about Yom Mishteh V'Simcha, a day of literally drinking and fun, but a party and fun. So I've got a little bit left of my shot glass.
Me too, L'chaim.
L'chaim. And thank goodness that I don't have to drive anywhere. This is the one positive. The one positive of being stuck at home is my commute is if I can make it up the stairs, and I should be okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm glad you're able to be here. And we really appreciate everybody signing on for this. Those who are watching it online later on video, whatever, that's wonderful. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, we'll be posting the text for the wraps online at some place as well. And you can check our Facebook pages, either Rabbi Denise Handlarski, the professional page, or the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism. I wish everyone a Chag Purim Sameach, a happy Purim. It was great to have you here. And there's lots of other online programs around. If you want to find a Megillah reading, if you want to find a Purim spiel, if you want to find, there's stuff happening today, there's stuff happening tomorrow for Shabbat, there's stuff happening on Sunday for Sunday schools. You can find lots of stuff out there. So by all means, go dig into it. Also, I want to thank Jewish Live, who was hosting this on Facebook. And again, they have lots of resources they put together. They did a Megillah project, creation of different commentaries on the Purim Megillah. There's lots to dive into. If you haven't gotten enough tonight, you can get more then. But if not,
one last plug, I forgot. Every Jewish Live hosts a show with Dan Liebenson, one of the founders of Jewish Live, and also the podcast Judaism Unbound, and myself. It's called Daring Judaism, and it's every Friday at 11 a.m. You can join me tomorrow.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much. And, Denise and I have been trying to find a time to get drunk virtually together for a long time. And it only took a major Jewish holiday plus a public program with 200 of our closest friends to actually make it happen. So I was thrilled to have the opportunity. Denise, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks all for being here. We'll see you at future events. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.